Hey everybody, Christian from Treasure Town here, and today we're going to be speaking about a problem with silver that I've recently sort of thought about and been a little bit concerned with. Now, I'm not giving investment advice. I don't recommend either a buy or a sell. Personally, I have about 5% of my total investment portfolio in silver, which is way higher than the average. Now, again, that doesn't mean buy or sell, but this is something that I've been thinking about and a little concerned about. So I wanted to share it with you, get some of your thoughts, see what you think in the comments below, but I always try to give everybody my full perspective, and this is something that I wanted to raise. So in terms of the problem with silver that I'm talking about, and I think that it's actually concerning because it's also relative to gold. So it's not like here's a big problem overall with the whole precious metals sector. It really has to do with the way that silver is being purchased and the types of people and the money that's flowing into silver. On the other hand, it could be sort of a good thing if you take the opposite view and say, well, hey, maybe this is a real price catalyst for silver to go way, way up. But the big thing with silver is that I see a lot of sort of demand around owning it physically, retail buyers, and silver pumpers. Now, that's not necessarily too different from the situation with gold, but I think that the price point at which people get into something like gold or palladium or platinum versus silver is very unique, because at the time I'm making this video, and I always try to make my content evergreen so it should hold up, but $1,800 gets you an ounce of gold, $25 or $24 gets you an ounce of silver, and I'm going to do the math really quickly here on what the ratio, that's like a 75 times ratio between gold and silver. So for the average person, very few people are going to own too much more than a few percent of their worth in gold or silver, especially physically. And, say you have about $10,000 to put into gold or silver. I think a lot of people are encouraged to move towards silver because with that $10,000, say you've got $500, you could either have maybe a third of an ounce, not even that much, maybe a quarter of an ounce really. That sort of $450 is perfect. So a quarter of an ounce of gold, or you could come away with maybe 20 ounces of silver. And I think that people, when they are buying physical, that $500 price point for a roll of 20 silver ounce rounds, and that's not ignoring the fact that the premiums are way high on silver, so you wouldn't even get 20 rounds. But the physical enjoyment of owning that quarter ounce of gold versus that 20 ounces of silver means that for a lot of people, really it makes sense, or they feel a lot better about purchasing that silver. So what I'm saying is, it's a lot easier to collect silver, whereas when you're going for gold, maybe that's a situation where people are less likely, they can't like sell a few ounces here and then pick up a few ounces from the shop down the, a few weeks later if they feel like the price swings have been going on. It's much more catered towards higher amounts of money on the gold side, whereas silver has sort of smaller inflows. The physical storage, when you're thinking about then investing for the people who are putting in, $10 million, at that point, $10 million of silver would probably have a fair amount of storage costs and just be huge, like some massive vault I'm just imagining. I mean, that would be a monstrous amount of silver. Whereas if you have $10 million and you put it into gold, even if you take physical storage or you're paying somebody to do that, let me look at what 10 million, let me just put it in my computer so that I don't, that's like 5,500 ounces of gold, so like 11 monster boxes. People are going to pay to store that somewhere. You're not going to store that in your house. But even then, 10 monster boxes or 11 monster boxes is a storable amount. If you then, 5,500 times, 75, I think very few people are going to be purchasing, 416,000 ounces of silver. Even when you divide that by 500, let's see, how many, like 833 monster boxes doesn't make sense to own. So I think, at that point you're looking at a lot, if you want to have the silver exposure, you're going to go with paper silver, which is a little bit different. And again, I'm sure people do it. Maybe they're trading huge quantities for industrial uses, or just want to establish a position in that, but nobody's going to store 800 monster boxes of silver. It's just not going to happen. Or it's just a lot less appealing. When you have that type of money, a lot of the sort of premium in like prepping, nobody's going to want to prep with silver. They'd much rather have, 200 1-ounce gold coins on them. I don't even really take into consideration the prepping aspect, but also then think about how some of the investment funds would view the silver versus the gold. And, often these funds probably aren't going to have to take physical delivery. They don't really want to do that. It doesn't make sense for their purposes. But gold having more value stored when you're talking about really large sums of money, at least my understanding is that it would make more sense to go into gold just because it's, of its nature in terms of how it ends up being physically. Plus, it's more of a pure play investment in terms of maybe a hedge against inflation or a store of value, whereas silver has a much higher percentage. I think it's like 50% maybe versus like 7% with gold of being used in whether it's solar or green energy or different applications versus gold. So when you're looking for a store of value and looking for the high end, put a lot of money into it, I would think that that money might flow more towards gold. On the other hand, when you have people who are more getting into it for fun, and it's like an easily transactable thing, you have a lot of people just when they go and purchase coins or something as like precious metals, they're probably more likely to go for the silver instead of the gold, or at least a lot of people do. And it's a lot easier for like a gold or silver YouTuber. They'd rather, aesthetically, it's so much more visually appealing to be talking over like 500 ounces, which again, let me just do the math. I feel like I should have that. 500 ounces is what, like, $12,000 or so. That's a lot more attainable than talking over even 50 ounces of gold, which is going to be like $90,000. It's the entertainment side lends itself, I think, a lot better to focusing on something more along the lines of silver versus gold. And when you have a lot of sort of entertainment and hype around collecting this item, that can lead to valuations that aren't really as in line with the investment perspective. Now, maybe the whole flip side of what I'm saying is that, all of a sudden, maybe these people who haven't been putting in these large sums of money and they've been putting them towards gold or other similar, higher end pursuits, maybe they all of a sudden go into silver. I don't think it would take quite as much money as people think to see really high rises in the price of silver, but then like who's gonna be, does it really make sense for that large investment firm to make a big investment and then maybe there's not too much liquidity in terms of the end goal of selling to people, plus there's a lot of silver out there, so it would probably take a fair amount of money to move the market. But all I'm saying is, and when you see premiums also so high, you think, people are really paying for physical. Well, I don't think the premiums are really that high when you're buying 1,000-ounce quantities, like really large, say somebody who's got a net worth of $100 million, decides to put 1/200th of it, I think that's 500,000, into silver. I think probably they might look, if they want physical delivery, it's going to be like 1,000-ounce bars, and those don't have nearly anywhere the premiums that like buying a bunch of new design 1-ounce silver coins that are basically marketed to collectors would have. So hope that this is helpful. Hope that these are some things to think about. On one hand, maybe some inflows could make a big jump for silver, but I think that it just hasn't been viewed as being that investable of a substance. I don't think that that's really true, but maybe these big flows of monies, it makes sense if gold is really the physical standard for having the store of value, that's where the attention goes. I've spoken with some higher net worth people that really are just focused on gold. The silver they think is fun, but they don't really put quite as much stock into it. And I think that makes sense. I think if I wanted to invest a really high amount of, and again, this is not investment advice, but personally, if I wanted to have a physical hedge and I want to put a ton of money into it and maybe have some, defense utilization, I think for those higher amounts of money, the gold makes more sense to me than the silver, just because you can carry really a pretty considerable amount of money around versus silver, significant, but the scale is so different where, I don't know, I just want to raise that point. I think there's much more pumping going on and there's plenty of gold bulls online, and I think the gold bulls might even be more heard in the investment community. but it sort of seems like two slightly diverging paths. If you look at the premiums on a percentage basis, gold is much easier to get low premiums on. So just something to think about. Hope that this was helpful. I'm really interested in hearing what you have to say. If you have similar views, or maybe you can take down my argument pretty easily. But looking forward to hear what you have to say. Thanks for watching the video. I'd encourage you to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel to stay updated. I've also got Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, so you can follow me there. TreasuretownYT.com is the main channel website. Definitely give that a visit. I've got a lot of information about me up there and the channel. CoinGrabBag.com as well currently redirects there, but it's some good opportunities for very fair grab bags, both made by me and other sellers. A lot of different options, so that's a good way to support. There's also TreasuretownCoins.com. In the future, my coin dealing operation will be done out of that website. CoinMeltPrice.com for updates on the melt prices of your coins, both US and world. A lot of resources in that website. And then CoinsMetalsCards.com being developed right now as a marketplace and news source for coins, metals, cards, and collectibles in general. So I'll see you on my future videos. Looking forward to seeing you there, and hope you have a good day.